please welcome Sarah Hull.
Freeze! I hear a voice behind me. And I glance over my shoulder, and there is a swarm of police officers behind me. This is it. This is the moment I knew that would always happen. It's because I'm a rule follower. I follow every rule to make sure that something like this doesn't happen, because if I step one step out of line, there'll be some consequence, including up until going to jail. And we all know that I won't survive in jail. I'm a fussy eater with sensitive skin, and I'm a people pleaser, so I'll be smuggling drugs by the end of the week. I'm snapped back to reality by the police telling me to stand up and explain yourself, which I of course do because I'm a people pleaser and I listen to the rules and I follow them automatically. I hold out my arms in front of me to make sure the police know that I am no threat to them. The lead police officer at the front looks at my hands, which are holding crappy old shoes, and look down to my giant pregnant belly, and I hear him mutter, "I don't get paid enough for this shit." 6 months earlier, I'm standing in my ensuite looking at a positive pregnancy test. I can't believe it. My husband and I have been trying to have a second baby for 2 years. I hear my phone ringing in the next room, but I screen it because I need to take another test to make sure I'm just not dreaming. This one comes up positive too. My phone keeps ringing and I think I better answer it. Someone obviously needs me, it's some sort of an emergency. And it's my nan. Now, I usually don't get much change out of an hour after speaking to my nan because she runs me through from the 1930s to present. But her call is very short, it's very direct and to the point, and her voice is flat, almost monotone. And she says, "Love, I need you to call your dad and ask him what's going on. He doesn't want to worry you, but he's keeping something from you." So I immediately call my dad. My dad's annoyed that my nan has called me because he doesn't want to worry me over something so trivial, and it's not a big deal. But I eventually pry out of him that he's had a scan of his liver, and there's a tiny, inconsequential nothing blip. And he needs to have a couple of tests, but don't worry because it will absolutely come back to be nothing. But it wasn't nothing, it was cancer, and he was dead within 6 months. Now my mum and dad had divorced years before, and my dad was remarried to Danny. But Dad didn't want Danny to be in charge of all of his important decisions because English wasn't her first language and she was easily confused. So he appointed me to be his power of attorney and the executor of his estate. And look, I mean, I get it. I'm an obvious choice. I'm the eldest in the family. I'm a rule follower, sensible one. I'll always try and make the right decision. I'm also a lawyer, so I get lunch with these sorts of things in the family, that's fine. But in reality, this was torture for me because I was struggling watching my dad deteriorate very quickly in front of me while having to make some really difficult decisions which were dividing my extended family apart. I just couldn't make decisions that would keep everybody happy. And at the same time, I was trying to juggle a high-risk pregnancy, a high-energy 3-year-old, and a high-pressure job. So by the time my dad eventually died, I was emotionally and physically just wrecked. So the funeral planning is a blur, but I get it all done. Or so I think. I get a call from the funeral director the day before the funeral, and he asks what I'm planning to bury my dad in because what I've supplied, nothing, so nudity, is not appropriate. Okay, this is fine. I've got some old clothes of Dad's from when he was travelling, it's great, but I don't have any shoes. So I text Danny, my dad's wife, and ask her if I can swing by and grab some shoes for him to be buried in. Now, Danny's not happy with me. I've made some decisions that she didn't agree with over the last couple of weeks. And while I've kept in touch with her, I've given her space to grieve and simmer down. But I do text her and she tells me, her message is curt and it's not frilly, but she says that I can come over and pick up the shoes, but it has to be at a designated time that suits her. So sure, that's fine. I mean, it'll be a rush to get to the funeral home before they close, but look, I can do it. It's fine. I'll come at that time. Thank you. So my 3-year-old daughter and I show up to Dad and Danny's house at the designated time, and she's nowhere to be found. But her 16-year-old daughter, Vivi, my dad's stepdaughter, is there. And I think, oh God, that's great, because Vivi has been kept separate from all this drama, and she and I, we're cool. Or so I thought. It's clear that she's been filled in on one side of the story, and she makes no effort to hide her disdain towards me. She won't even open the door, and she insists on talking to me through a locked screen. Hey, Vivi, can I grab a pair of my dad's shoes? No. Can you grab me a pair of dad's shoes? It's for him to be buried in. No. Do you have any idea what time Danny's going to be home so she can get me the shoes? No. Okay, that's fine. So I get out my phone and I call Danny with my number blocked, of course, and I beg her in my most friendly and empathetic and negotiating tone. But it's quite clear that Danny is also furious at me, and she's quite happy to waste my time. I think, stuff it, I'm just going to Kmart and I'm going to buy Dad any old pair of shoes. But then a little voice inside my head thinks, what happens if the dead have to wear what they're buried in for all eternity? And you don't know what size shoes he wears. He might have to run around in the afterlife wearing massive clown shoes or shoes that are too tight. So no, I'm here, I'm going to get the shoes. So I ask again, I put on my best, happy, I'm really sorry, can we just get this sorted voice? No. I'm starting to feel the stress and sadness and anger of the last few months just bubble up inside of me. I mean, this isn't fair. I didn't ask for my dad to get sick. I didn't want him to die. I certainly never wanted to be in charge of all of this. I know Danny's mad at me because I made some decisions about withdrawing care, but the doctors had told me that there was nothing left that to be done. And I know Danny's mad at me because she sprung on me on the day that Dad died that she wanted to take Dad home for some culturally significant cleansing ritual that I'd never heard of. But she has to remember that I wasn't the one who said she couldn't take him home. That was the doctors who said he needed an autopsy to get a death certificate. But if we're being honest, I had no desire to strap my dad's corpse into a wheelchair, push him across a major metropolitan hospital district, load him into my car, squished between my daughter's car seat and my newly installed infant capsule, buckle him in, drive him home to their house, prop him up in their lounge room where there's no air conditioning in 30-degree temperature. This is not fucking Weekend at Bernie's for Daddy. I just need a pair of these shoes so he can please be buried without being barefoot. So the words just tumbled out of me before I could stop them, and there is dead silence. Thankfully, my 3-year-old, who I'd actually forgotten was there right off my bed, announces that she needs to do a poo immediately. Now, Danny might hate my guts, but she adores my daughter, and she is not going to let her poo her pants on her front step. So she insists to Vivi that she opens the door, lets us in to use the toilet, and concedes that I can grab a pair of shoes on the way out. Great. Vivi is furious, but she unlocks the door and marches to her room and slams the door behind her. Now, I don't have the emotional capacity to deal with this right now, so I help my daughter go to the toilet, and then I go to my dad's room and I start hunting through the bottom of his wardrobe to find a pair of matching shoes. And it's at that moment that I hear the police yell, "Freeze." The police quickly realise that me, the large pregnant woman just wanting a pair of shoes, and my daughter, whose only crime was needing to poo, are not the dangerous masked assailants that had kicked the door in and were robbing the house while Vivi hid in her room, barricading the door. The police are understandably furious that Vivi has made this fake 000 call, and she's sobbing while they lecture her. But you know what? I don't have time for this. I grab the shoes, run to the funeral home and make sure they get there in time. Now, it's been 6 years since then, and I've managed to stay out of the police's grip since then. Largely because Vivi didn't show up to the funeral because of stress and I wasn't forced to kick her butt. But I've matured a lot since then, and I realise, what's the point of always sticking to the straight and narrow and always following the rules? I mean, would jail be the worst thing? Now that I'm a mum of 2, that actually sounds okay. I catch up on sleep and the books that I've always wanted to read, and someone would cook my food, I don't care how bad it is, and do my laundry. But if I'm going to go to jail, I hope it's for something less lame than stealing a dead man's shoes.